how you dress is a big deal, especially in a negotiation, because how you dress will affect how the other person perceives you. We have biases of all kinds, as you know, as human beings. Your job as a negotiator is to eliminate those biases, but it doesn't mean you're going to eliminate them from your audience. They will be affected by things. Everything you say, every word counts. Watch your language. I don't mean as in swearing. I mean, watch what you say. You can't undo it.
Welcome, and thank you all for joining us for another Justia webinar. My name is Nina, and I'll be the moderator for today. Now, to kick things off, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Stefano Riznik. Stefano Riznik is a businessman with a law degree, and as a result is very practical in his practice. He thinks like a businessman and knows that people want to resolve their problems with as little cost as possible. While he is a trial lawyer, his skills as a high-level negotiator have saved his clients millions of dollars in what would have been wasted dollars spent in litigation. Stefano Riznik has lectured in almost every CLE, continuing legal education organization in the country, and is in the process of writing a book. The webinar presentation that you're about to watch will be approximately 1 hour, and Stefano will be taking questions from the audience, so you can feel free to submit those at any time by clicking the Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those as they come through. Now, without further ado, here is Stefano to discuss high-level negotiations when losing is not an option, part 2.
Good morning, everybody on the West Coast. Good afternoon, everybody on the East Coast. I'm going to continue from where we left off last time. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I didn't get through half the slides, which I was supposed to. And the reason was because I came up with stories of what had occurred in real life. And I'm hoping that those brought a lot more value to you than having gone through more slides, because at the end of the day, you can read the slides. But taking, what's written and applying it to real life, those little sidebars hopefully will stick with you, because, when I lived in Dallas, one of the things I loved about Texan people is everything's a story. So if you go for a barbecue, you could be there all night and you remember the stories. So I'm hoping you remember my stories about the things that occurred in negotiation. Now, I'm going to preface by stating this. Remember, now, for those of you who attended last time, thank you very much for coming back. Those who haven't, I think it's not a bad idea for you to spend some time and have a look at section 1, because there are a lot of key concepts. But at the end of the day, what my job here for you is to simply open your mind to the many factors that have to be considered in a negotiation. There are endless factors. Whenever I watch the news, especially if I watch, live rather than reading it, negotiations are always going to have a place in this world. People are just not going to get along. I just don't see things changing in the next several hundred years. People have vested interests. They have this, they have that, and there are always two sides to it. And negotiations you need in every aspect of your life, whether it be in sales, whether it be in say you're in litigation and you want to minimize the damages, because unfortunately, with the internet, television, the damage can be far more severe than the check you're going to write. Or it could be in your personal relationship. Sometimes one word, one situation will change everything. Now, by the way, I'm talking a bit faster today because I'm going to get through those slides. I got to. And I pick up where I left off, but I want to just leave you with something to keep in mind. Number 1, treat every individual as an individual. Everybody's different. Their parents treated them differently. The schoolmates treated them differently. They have different thoughts. They've watched different programs that have affected them, or people that have affected them. Everybody's an individual. The only time you want to start categorizing them is when you see specific behavior that is categorizable. So that is the only time you really want to do it. But we need to do it as negotiators. Remember, last time I talked about something like an Excel sheet where you have columns and rows. The rows are the different things that I bring to your attention today and that I brought to you last Friday. But the columns, or pardon me, the columns are the different things. The rows are what occurs simultaneously. Because when you're in a negotiation, it's not just one thing or one, how to explain this, one core concept, one way of thinking. There are multiple factors that are taking place. And for example, I did something today that's a little bit different than last day. You notice I'm wearing a different suit. One of the things a lot of people who've worked for us didn't pay attention to in a negotiation is how they dress. Um, how you dress is a big deal, especially in a negotiation, because how you dress will affect how the other person perceives you. We have biases of all kinds, as you know, as human beings. Your job as a negotiator is to eliminate those biases, but it doesn't mean you're going to eliminate them from your audience. They will be affected by things. So last time I had a different suit on. I'm hoping for most of you, you can't remember what color the suit was. It was meant to be a nondescript, it was a blue suit actually. A nondescript suit came in to do the job. Didn't speak aloud one direction or the other. But you notice how a black suit is a little bit different? Now, let me show you something interesting. Pre-tied the knot so I could do this very rapidly for you, James Bond style. I'll show you something. Let's say that I came to a negotiation wearing this beautiful black tie by one of my favorite people, and a black suit. Do you see the difference? Can you feel the difference? Now watch this. Same black tie. Didn't want to bring you an array, so I went from one extreme to the other. And I've been involved in both extremes. What does that tell you? Do you see the difference? Same person, same black tie. And I only wear black ties for certain things. But do you see the difference? And the tie that you wear, if you're a man, of course, the tie that I was wearing today, a little bit older, but one of my faves. Do you notice how complex it is? Here's the problem you face if you have a monochromatic tie negotiations. Let's say you have a red tie. A person may associate you with something that they associate in their mind with that color, or with certain behavior that you use in your discussion. Let's say that the person tends to be very pushy. You're associating that with that tie. Then all of a sudden, the next time they're wearing that tie, it brings back those memories. Just like if you know about state-dependent learning, where sometimes you have to get a person drunk so they remember what they did last time when they were drunk. But this tie is complex. It's actually a perfect tie for negotiations. If you think about it, that's how complex negotiations are. It doesn't say anything. You can't memorize something about it. But it also says that anything is possible because, again, different colors, different patterns, different arrays, different everything. So keep that in mind. And there's some times when in a negotiation, I simply remove the jacket. It depends on who my audience is. Because at the end of the day, on negotiations, it's all about your audience. It's not about you. Same thing with glasses. If I wear these glasses, it creates a certain look. But I have a wider type of glass for a different audience. Or I'll wear these. And I'm careful which ones I wear, especially if I'm, on Zoom in court or on Teams, because of course it'll affect how a judge perceives you. Have them with red rims, purple rims. There's all kinds of things. But if you think for a minute that they don't change things, guess again, they do. So let's go to our slide that we were on last time. So I believe we went to 35-ish. And remember that quote I just saw? Great negotiator tells you to go to hell in such a way you look forward to the trip. That's the negotiator I want you all to be. I believe this is the last slide. We were discussing Mark Twain's quote. But a more important one is the last quote here. How do you catch a sniper? You use another sniper. Why? You need to think like a sniper. You, as a negotiator, have to think like your rival and to understand them, which is not easy to do, but hopefully I'll provide some ideas. Something to keep in mind in negotiations, because I've been to a lot of different negotiations with massive boardroom tables and all kinds of personalities. There's an old saying that says, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. This can be interpreted in a number of ways, but usually the interpretation is that the person you're representing is on the menu or on the chopping block. So you need to keep in mind what your role is and what your client's role is, what the situation is. And usually, if they've hired a negotiator, they're not at the table, so to speak. Careful to identify very quickly who is cold-blooded in the negotiations, especially if you've got a big boardroom of table, a large table, as I was going to say, because the person who's cold-blooded is not going to understand somebody who's nice and lovely in this. They have no respect for you. Unfortunately, and I've had to do this more than once in a situation, you have to be tougher, stronger. You have to be somebody they respect. You have to be an alpha person if you're with an alpha person, because otherwise they'll look at you as a beta. And if you don't have their respect, you're not going anywhere. Manipulation. Be careful the conversations that take place during your negotiation. They may say you're too controlling or your client is too controlling. What are they trying to do? To get you to be more compliant, too dominant, direct confrontation. Why? They want that position. They may say, well, listen, you're being too judgmental. And you're saying to yourself, I didn't say anything judgmental. Um, the they're basically trying to manipulate how you feel about something. You've been in that situation before, I'm sure, where somebody calls you something and you're like, where did that come from? But you also have to realize they're coming from their universe. They may be highly judgmental. So the problem that you face is the smallest thing that you say triggers their judgmentalism. And so they attack you by calling you judgmental. Why? They're trying to shape the narrative where they want it to go. Don't ever fall into those traps. Now, another one is great job, great job. Let's say you're representing a client and, his superiors always saying great job, great job. Think about that for a second. What does that mean? First of all, who are they to say great job, great job? If they're not in a superior position, then they're trying to take that position. Don't buy into it. When you're getting a compliment that you're not sure where it came from, ask yourself, what kind of a compliment is it? Is it a compliment where they're trying to take a role, or they say, I'm proud of you? Well, who the hell are you to be proud of me? Why do you think that you have the right to be proud of me? You don't know me. So you have to ask what's going on. Learn how not to answer the question. Now, here's the thing. This works both ways. They're going to do it to you and you're going to object to this behavior, but you can do it to them. So let's say somebody asks you, and lawyers, you know this through depositions, right, or cross-examination, how to deal with questions that you don't want asked of you. You can use the asking of it to attack. Why are you asking me if I stole the money? Like, where do you get off thinking that I would steal money from you, or that you have the right to attack me for it? Or you can answer part of the question and ignore another part, and then, continue the narrative so that they forgot what they asked you. You can blame the other for asking it. That's awfully rude of you. So now we're talking about rudeness and we're off the question. You can respond with a question of your own. They say, well, you didn't work very hard at this. Did you contribute anything to it? Did you help me help you with it? That kind of a thing. You can question the asking of a question, making it mean something. Say, aren't you just asking that question to throw me off? Because I didn't defraud you, do this, do that, do that. And so now we're attacking the question, not the substance of it. And once in a while, you may do something novel like actually answer the question if it's in your favor. But you have to understand these dynamics so that they're not used against you. Beware of the predispositive attitude of the person on the other side. Are they a bully? Are they judgmental? And by the way, a lot more people than you think are judgmental, and it's hard to deal with them sometimes because everything you say is under a microscope. Are they biased? If so, what are they biased to? Are they intellectuals? How do they like their material presented? Do they think that they're better than anyone else with certain competences? For example, interestingly enough, and I've been through a ton of seminars to understand the human condition. And one of the things in one seminar that occurred that really threw me off, there was this young lady who had stated that if she met somebody who wasn't good at Pilates, she had less respect for them as a human being. But then again, you see this a lot. You see some people who are into weightlifting and, they got nicely sculpted bodies, and they think less of you because you don't spend 3 hours a day in the gym. We're all good at something. Life is a symphony, and we all play our instruments. Whether you're cleaning floors or running a country, we're all contributing to this symphony. So to me, I think we're all equal. Well, not I think. We are all equal. But to some other people, they will find something, and be careful because this can happen in your negotiation conversations. They'll find something. Maybe you don't know enough about this. You don't know. Like I for example, used to have an ex-girlfriend's father was a mathematics professor. You come to visit him, he's asking you a math question, and that's how he judges you as a human being. And I'm like, I'm not a mathematician. I'm not going to solve this formula in my head. And frankly, I don't care what he thinks of me. But for him, this was very critical. He would think of a person as better or less than if they could solve these complex issues in their mind. Some people are racist, sadly, today in 2026. It's hard to believe, but yes, we still have that. Are they controlling? A lot of people tend to be controlling that you'll end up with in negotiations, and you have to diffuse them. Who they are is what you need to know. Because as it says on the bottom, the negotiation style of your rival will vary differently depending on where they fall with respect to these character traits, but also what's going on that day. If you're trying to negotiate with somebody from a large corporation and that day they're told, look, if you do XYZ or get this result, I'll give you a raise or not. And this just happened within the last 12 hours. That's going to affect your negotiations. Mechanisms. Again, these are mechanisms of manipulation and control. I sense that you're tense and anxious. Am I reading you right? Um, this is something you can do to the other side or they can do to you. And it's most of the time they'll be doing it to you. I don't recommend you doing it unless unless it's true. You feel that they're tense and anxious. And in fact, I had such a conversation the other day and somebody felt really, what's the word? Tense, I guess is probably a good word. And I'm not that kind of a lawyer or person. I'm saying like, is something wrong? Person said, no, 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 but you could tell there was something there. Again, they could have read me wrong. You never know. But, you could ask the other side. I sense that you're tense and anxious. Am I reading you right? But here's the problem. The other side may be asking you these questions. For example, number 2, I sense that you're taking this personally. This is not about you. I'm going to destroy your life and your financial future and your kids' education, but it's nothing personal, right? Um, but if they ask it about you, don't ever be deflected or affected by their judgment or anything. Don't second guess yourself. You're coming in there as a neutral negotiator. Don't ever let them ask you these questions and throw you off your game. Um, Another set of mechanisms that they can use, they can say, I didn't realize. So instead of attacking you, it's a situation now. I didn't realize this was going to be confrontational. By the way, I've used that before because sometimes I'm talking to opposing counsel to resolve the case, and then they're all of a sudden attacking the case, attacking me, threatening a Rule 11. I'm like, I thought we were here to resolve the case. So the powerful, all you need is one word. I didn't realize this would be emotional. Um, I didn't realize this was going to be stressful, personal, condescending. There are many such words. Again, they can be used against you. Prepare for this kind of a conversation. But also, there are times that you need to use it on the other side. You need to diffuse someone who decides to make it confrontational, which is when it's a settlement discussion. The curse of the diamond ring, when nothing is enough and they keep raising the bar. There are some negotiations you're going to go into. It doesn't matter what you offer the people. It's never going to be enough. And be careful. Now, for those of you who attended the first seminar, I divided humans into two, again, broad brushstrokes, but into two general groups of people, the accountables and the non-accountables. Non-accountables are the type of people who really don't care about the consequences of their behavior as they affect you. Um, they they do things, but they also seek out jobs where they're not personally accountable. Why? They don't have to be responsible for anything, and they don't have to care. And usually, the quality of their work shows. And they're the type of person who'll always answer to you, well, this is not my department. That's not my department. I know I've worked here 20 years and I don't know where the bathroom door is. That kind. I'm using bathroom door as an example. Like they don't know something simple, completely related to their core competence. They've worked there forever, but they don't care. They don't care about the goals of the organization to make things better. And they don't care about customer service. They care about themselves and their goals. It's a very, very difficult people to work with. And, hopefully you don't have to have a negotiation with them because it's no fun. Beware we've gotten to the point where everybody's got a right and nobody's got a responsibility. Anybody who's involved in hiring people knows this. Where you have, unfortunately, a difficult world, especially post-COVID, as I mentioned last time, I've seen people's behavior radically change. And unfortunately, everybody's got a right to this, right to sue you, right to do this, right to do that. But yet, when it comes to them being responsible for their own behavior, there doesn't seem to be any of that. You hire somebody just to work and you can't even get them to work. You pay them, but it's not, that's irrelevant. But you have to do X, Y, Z for them. It's difficult, but you have to be careful with this kind of a situation. Again, I can't spend the amount of time that I'd love to spend with each of these slides, but this is the kind of person who has no problems not doing as in an employee situation, not doing their work, leaving it all for somebody else, not worrying that the person has to work to midnight to get it done. They'll just walk into work the next day. And if somebody, takes them to task, they say, well, that's fine. I'll just sue you. This is the world we live in. Now, obviously, there are people who are accountable who aren't like that, but you've got a lot of non-accountables. And it's hard to spot them just because somebody works in a large organization or just because somebody is involved in a bureaucracy or this or that doesn't mean they're non-accountable because there are wonderful people everywhere. I'm not saying that people are not good, but in negotiations and litigation, we usually aren't picking from the cream of the crop. We are picking from people who are involved in having done something wrong to your client. And again, these are the challenges that we are working with. Okay, so this is an interesting quote. What this speaks to is whether it be your personal life or your business life, one of the things that you're going to find, let's say a partnership, business partnership, when everything is going well, it's easy for you both to get along, to be happy, This is working, that's working. Let's go have a drink. Let's go have dinner. Da 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 da. Nothing but nothing will betray who you are as much as hard times will. That is when you find out or ascertain the construct of the other person's, um, what's the word? Skeletal overview of their patterns of dealing with stress, negativity, being challenged. And it's a shame that you can't set up I know some companies actually do that, set up a crisis situation just to test how a person would react. But the same person who will be very happy, this, that, easy to get along with, easygoing, under stress, may be somebody very, very different. Do not be surprised when you come across that kind of a person, because in good times, you never know who the person really is. It's only under stress and challenges that you will discover who that person is. Next, beware. Some of you already know this. The liar's punishment is not in the least that he or she is not believed, but they cannot believe anyone else. The biggest problem a liar has is they don't believe anybody. Why? Because again, not all liars. Depends on the kind of liar somebody is. As I stated earlier, I could spend a lot more time with each slide. But if somebody sees everybody as a liar because they lie so much and manipulate so much, it's difficult to work with them because they will believe you're a liar. And your job is somehow to make them understand that you are cut from a different cloth than they are. It's a bit of a job, but it's just like I was explaining to you about last time about the client who didn't trust law firms with any of his money in a trust account. You know what? That's somebody I didn't trust. Didn't want to work with somebody like that. If somebody's that untrusting, ask yourself why. Um, this slide basically says uh, too many people wing it, and not because they're irresponsible. It's because life is busy. We have a lot to do and a lot to do simultaneously. But in a negotiation, at least a high level one, and the way I define it, because you could choose any term, I don't care about terms, but there's one non-negotiable, and it's very serious, like the kidnapping of a child, the extortion of a political figure, career destruction of an actor or a doctor. These are non-negotiable, and the consequences are severe and long-lasting. You have to clear your desk as if you were having a trial, and spend the time to really understand your client, the situation, more than anything, the rival. The more information you can get about that rival, the better, because that is going to be the key. And again, in this seminar series, we're going to try and share with you as many different um, situations, or that's not the right word, as many different rows and columns as we can to show you the things that you have to consider. You may not be able to consider all of them, or you may. I mean, if you got a great memory and great writing skills, make yourself a nice Excel chart with everything to consider. But check off as many boxes as you can. Because what happens is, our mind is an incredible, incredible gift from God. And it can do things that you're not even aware of. But what it does is it turns around and it will take all the data presented to it, and it'll provide you with a way of being as somebody that normally you wouldn't be. Um, And what do I mean by that? Like, I'll give you an example. I had a girlfriend. We lived together 3.5 years ago, but that was 30 years ago. We're still friends. Her first name's Katrina. We speak on the phone on a semi-regular basis. She's married, I'm married, that kind of thing. But whenever I pick up the phone, we both end up laughing at the same time. She brings out that side of me because we've been in a lot of crazy situations. She's British, I'm British. We both have the same dry sense of humor. So we can't even say hello without laughing. This is what happens here too. Your mind will create a construct of who that other person is and who you need to be in order to relate to that other person. Because you have to. If you can't relate to them, you're not really a negotiator. That person has to be able to not only relate to you, but trust you. Because if they don't trust you, you're charging your client for nothing. And that's part of what I discussed last time is there are times your client's maybe not telling you the whole truth, or your client just sees things from a different perspective. Their perspective may work in their mind's construct, but may not work in reality, or may not work in that specific situation, or even more complex, may not work in contradiction to the situation the rival is looking at it from. And I call rival the opposite side. So it changes the reality. So if you're always agreeing with your client and telling the other person, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, do you think you're going to develop trust? No. You have to listen to what they say and do it objectively as if you haven't heard what your client had to say, as if you're hearing it for the first time. And try to bring some honesty to the conversation. Honesty meaning you're actually looking at this and that maybe he's got a good point. And maybe my client was partially responsible. How do we work this out? But if you're always just saying, oh yeah, my client's right, you're wrong, very few things are, that black and white, but you're not going to earn their respect. They have to. But all of this information you get will help you create who you have to be at that moment in time. Because back to the Katrina principle, who I am with her is certainly not who I am with a judge, and it's certainly not who I am with other friends. It's who I am with her as a result of what she brings out in me. And 30 years later, it's still the same thing she brings out in me. So you have to create that dimension in your mind of who the opposite side is and try to understand or help your mind help you understand on a subconscious level who you need to be on a conscious level to relate to that person. So yes, there'll be a lot of cognitive exercises with this. Most importantly, who are you being? Are you aware of who you're being to them? But this is what we just discussed at length. Do you think of the effect of who you're being? Now, again, who you're being will affect who they're being to you, right? Who Katrina is affects. Notice I even laugh when I say her name, when I am to her. You realize the power of who you're being can change the atmosphere in the room. You ever heard about the person who walks in the room and the girls say, my God, he looks like he owns this room. Do you think that's an accident or just the one girl had too many drinks? I don't think so. Think about that, who you're being, and pay attention because once you learn negotiation, you're going to love people watching, especially in a place where they're meeting other people. Why do some people think you're great while others speak bad of you? You know, you're always going to have somebody who doesn't agree with you or your client. You can't change that. And a friend of mine told me a long time ago, he said, look, no matter who you speak to, 10% of the people are going to think you're horrible. 10 are going to think you can walk on water. And the other 80 are somewhere in between. You're not going to be successful with every person. Now, again, that's where you have to be just like a surfer and you have to adjust to the waves. And then that's where we'll discuss BATNA a little bit later. Now, so you have to be fluid. So if who you decided to be doesn't work in a certain negotiation, you're going to have to be somebody different. And you've got to dovetail that so gently that they don't even notice. And have I had to do this before? More than once. Think about 3 times. And you can pull it off. It's not easy because everything has to add up and you have to justify your previous behavior. It can be done. But sometimes you're not going to have it right because as you're being someone to the other person, they're responding to you. And now you may be seeing sides to them that you weren't aware of. It's fascinating, this whole area. Context and culture. Again, if you're dealing with somebody from another culture, please respect their culture. Just because you're from X culture doesn't make you right. We are all human beings. We all have our dignity. And you want to respect their culture. Sometimes when you're dealing with somebody from another culture, just knowing a few words, they are very impressed with that you took the trouble to know. But understanding what you say, what you don't say, how you sit, how you do this, da, 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 in their culture is critical. Like that's something that can't be forgiven. You can go on YouTube, you go on Chat GPT, you could go anywhere. You can discover some of the basics of what you need to do when dealing with someone from another culture. But also, if you're negotiating with someone from another culture, you have a lot more homework because of how things are considered. So you need to understand your rival, but it'll make you a richer person in the end. Let me move this screen so I can see what this is. Okay. Okay, so obviously, when you're in a negotiation, there's going to be a big picture and it may sound overwhelming. It's not. You break down everything into smaller facts. Rome, if you think about it, there was a lot to build Rome, even the Colosseum alone. And somebody didn't say, "Oh my gosh, this is scary. It's a big project. We don't even have the internet." No, one brick at a time. Break it down. Work on this section, then work on the next section, then on the next. It will come together. Badna doesn't cut it. A lot of people, you've heard the term, for those of you who had, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. What does it mean? It's like your fallback. In negotiations, you don't have a plan B. You can have in my opinion, you should have a plan A through E. But in negotiation, you have to be prepared of a derivative of one of those plans. I can honestly tell you, in probably at least a third of my negotiations, I had to come up with a creative solution that, despite all my research, was never even in the cards. And we just went back and forth, back and forth. It's like spreading a deck of 52 cards. And we said, well, wait a second. Could this work if I took the king of clubs, the jack of hearts, and the ace of diamonds? If we put them all together, would that work for you? Yes, we have a deal. Congratulations. So you're going to have to be prepared for anything. And I hope you're creative, because sometimes you're going to have to think of something you never thought of before and the other side didn't think of before. And that's how you make great friends, by the way. You come up with a creative solution, they'll like you and they'll respect you. And more importantly, the deal is done. However, this slide, the negotiation begins. I don't know if any of you out there played craps. I used to play craps, and I found it fascinating. I get bored easily, so blackjack's okay, but after a while, it's boring. But not craps, and the reason for it is at any given time, things are different and things occur that you would have never expected. I mean, I have a degree in biochem and genetics. So, there's a part of me as a scientist. How can someone trying to roll an 11, which we call a yo, when you come out, your first roll, you want a 7 or an 11. A yo, though, however, pays 16 to 1. How can people turn around and roll 2 or 3 of them consecutively? You know how to calculate permutations. The chances are so slim, yet there are certain shooters, as the person rolling the dice, that will roll consecutive yos. And of course, only after the last person rolled their point, which is when, it comes to them, next person clockwise, give them 2 dice, bingo, get an 11, bingo, get another 11. How can that be? Mathematically, it doesn't make sense. The chances are too small. So how does it happen regularly? I've seen it, and you'll see it in craps table. Things happen that don't make sense, number one. Number two, what is taking place at that time? And I've seen a lot of times when I've walked away from a craps table. You could be at a craps table and you're doing well, and maybe that's the time to walk away. So I'll walk away. But before I walked away, there was a shooter, there were a number of players surrounding the table, and there was the table itself. Those are 3 sets of dynamics that take place concurrently. Whatever was happening at that point in time, and it could have been as simple as me leaving the table or anything, even the croupier changing. But all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, and you cannot roll a winning number for trying. It's 7 after 7 after 7, which it's okay when on the first rollout. Anything subsequent to that, and you're out. Same table, maybe different players, different 15 minutes in time. What's my point? Why have I belabored this point? Next time you think of a craps table, which I'm not sure if you ever will, but next time you think about this, realize in the negotiation, at that point in time, if an opportunity is available to resolve it, if you've gotten the dynamics to where you can resolve this, come in like a jaguar and complete the negotiation, because it will never be as good as it is now. And you need to determine when that good as it is now time is. And you'll see it, it'll slowly develop through the conversation, through the interactions, through everything that takes place. And then all of a sudden, bingo, you'll get this feeling that, we're in a nice, comfortable place. Everybody's, boundaries are down. We're talking like human beings. Everybody's voices are quiet. Can we make this happen, guys? And then go for a drink together, something. Take advantage of that. So do realize when you have that sweet spot, it's not going to last long. And the average time I've seen, of course, I've seen 45 minutes in a craps table, but 15 minutes or less is usually when a table can get very hot very rapidly. You don't see it lasting forever. Nothing lasts forever, not even your troubles. But you have to hop in when the table's hot, so to speak. Same thing with you. Get to know when that time is and hop in. Let's see how, speaking of time, yeah. And by the way, I have to go to 3 minutes after the hour, because you have to have exactly 1 hour of putting up with me in order to get your CLE credits. One other thing I wanted to tell you. If you're in a negotiation, some people, and I kind of laugh in my head when I see this happening, I say to myself, amateurs, raise their voice and ruffle their feathers and try and come across as threatening. Please, do you know the most powerful way you can get across a serious message? Pausing and whispering. You'll have their attention, and they know you mean business. Do you think the powerful lords and big crime families turn around and yell and scream at people? They don't need to. It's scarier when it's quiet, because they're serious. So, same thing. You don't need to be the big bully or, look at me. You need to only whisper. They'll get your message. And also, you need to read some books, if you haven't, on the power of silence. But just as in acting, timing is everything. It's as important to know when as to know how. Now, emotions in negotiation. I'm not a fan of negative emotions, and unfortunately, You see them a lot in negotiations. Your job, if people start crying, this, that, all the stuff you've got to deal with, it could be your own client. You've got to keep your head straight, and you can't get embroiled in an emotional turmoil. You know, emotions are only going to mess things up. We've got to speak and be who we are with clear heads. And that means you cannot get emotional, which is one of the many things on the previous slides. Don't get involved in this. Because guess what? These things can affect you emotionally. Somebody turns around and says, you're sure coming across as a bully. And you're like, what have I done? And now all of a sudden you're defensive. Emotions kick in. You've got to be there no matter what happens, even if there's a bloody earthquake, with a clear head and even keel and go through the storm. If nothing else, the negotiator should be that person. Uh, Beautiful. Okay, again, same thing. You can read the slide, and then of course, you want to celebrate if you can stay through, because sometimes it's going to be real tough. It's going to be real tough when your clients are highly emotional, the other side's emotional. It's draining, especially if you're negotiating a marital settlement agreement. This slide, the power of acknowledgement, is simply to remind you of one thing. It's not only important to look and examine all the facts that took place, look at or examine all the facts that took place before this negotiation, but also what took place in the last 24 hours or 12 hours. Somebody may be coming tired. Somebody may have had bad news. Somebody may have just caught a cold. It changes who they are. Don't forget the present. Don't ignore it. Acknowledge it. Speaking of which, probably my cue to change my tie, show you another look, but I can do that while talking, so we're not losing any of these precious minutes. I'm going to show you another look on a different black tie. Acting classes. I took some acting classes when I lived in LA. I started by taking a course on how to act for court and got really enthused, and then got a little bit more into the industry and fascinating. Then I ended up, producing films. It's kind of, it's an awfully great world. It's wonderful. I met some fantastic people, but it's kind of a good background to have as a negotiator, because sometimes you're going to have to take yourself out of who you are. And maybe the person you're negotiating with is just the kind of person you despise. You sure aren't going to come across as neutral, and you won't do an effective job. And sometimes you have to be a different person in order to make the job work. There is no second chance. Think of it that way. You've got to be who you are for that job. And it's a complex job. Cognitive dissonance. Oh, I hate it, but I see too much of it. Why do most law firms get negative reviews? Sure, there's the occasional lawyer that provides bad service, but that's really not what the industry is about. It's because the person owes the money. And, how many times as a lawyer, and I'm sure this will ring true for you, heard from a client, you push or send me to collections or do something about this, I'll destroy you online. That's just another sentence nowadays. Now, how does the same client go from giving you a positive review to you being a bad person just because they owe you money? Here's the thing. They have to justify it in their mind. So somehow they're going to turn their constructs in their mind to where you are a horrible lawyer. You should have thought of this. You should have done this, blah, 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 blah. Let's say that there's a person who has a child, and this person, let's say it's a mother, she works in an office, and the child says, Mommy, I see you coming home with staplers, this, that, office equipment every night, and you told us it's not good to steal. Well, she doesn't see herself as a thief, so what does she say? Oh, listen, I'm an exempt employee. I work a ton of free overtime for them. They owe it to me. So she justifies what she does because she has to sleep at night. We all have to justify our behavior. It's like the guy who killed someone. Well, he deserved it. He was a bad guy anyway. Yeah. All right. So be careful of cognitive dissonance because it's really a lie that people are perpetrating on themselves, but they're going to believe it. They are fully vested in that lie because they have to justify what they've done. But the bigger problem you have, if you're in a negotiation where your client did something to someone else and they've justified it in their mind, like, oh, it's only business, you may have to redefine their view of what they did. Okay. But I think this third slide is one of my favorites. Our internal world must match our external world. I think it says it all. And you can read the rest of them because I want to be able to get through these slides and God, time flies. Okay. Everything counts. You cannot unring a bell. Remember that. I always remind myself of that. Whatever is said, whatever is done can never be undone with all the money in the world. Everything you say, every word counts. Watch your language. I don't mean as in swearing. I mean, watch what you say. You can't undo it. You can't change it. And guess what? The other side is going to remember not the 4 hours that you're a great person, but the one mistake that you made. Why? Because people as a group tend to be highly judgmental. They almost look for errors or something to make them feel better by making you feel worse. Not everybody, but generally speaking. So they're going to remember. Remember, look at that scowl he had on his face when he told me that he was disgusted that my client's a hunter or something like that. Just anything. That's remember what breaks the chain, the weakest link. Huh? One, the speed of your voice is easy to track. You can change it. Now, if you're in the different parts of the country or different audiences, older audiences, it may not be a good idea to speak at a New York level. At other times, like I love it when a lawyer calls me who talks fast because their calls are done in 3 minutes and we've discussed everything. Sometimes it's good, but sometimes I'm really tired. And to be honest with you, I've told lawyers more than once. I said, "Look, I know you're from New York, but I can't keep up. I've gotten older." So, and of course, it breaks the ice, and we get along, and they just slow it down just a bit. The tone of your voice affects the dynamics. It's very powerful. Every smile, laugh, frown you make is subconsciously recorded by your rival. And I have to be careful with that because, again, I don't have an American sense of humor. I have a British sense of humor. I may laugh at something that nobody else is laughing at unless they're British, and I may find it funny. But again, different sense of humor, and this is where cultural differences, have to be looked at. The way you dress, which we've been discussing, is critical. You notice this tie, very, very different black than this. And they send very different messages. So you notice the subcategorizations, we're talking about black ties, but still different black ties. And I had some other ties here, something like this. Again, just a different look. Or this one would send a very different message. I want you to consider that, and I'm going to keep on talking because we're at the speed of your voice. Remember, I just said it. I got to go fast today to finish all these slides. The way you carry yourself, I'm sure you've heard about it, stand tall, chin, da, da, da. It'll say a lot about you. You'll be judged before uttering your first word. Keep that in mind. Create a new business card if you have to that says negotiator, not that, high-powered lawyer. People are unforgiving of your moves, of course. Every single thing you say will be interpreted according to not your world or the world you've created, their world. Keep that in mind. That's why you need to know your rival, because guess what you're learning? Their language. The languages are not the ones we use as human beings in our countries or cultures. The languages we use for ourselves. That's where communication really begins. Know the other person's language. And if you're insincere, it's over before it begins. Human beings, layers, things to look at. Your world is not their world. We believe what we want to believe and what we choose to believe. How did their parents treat them? How are they treated in school? How do they dress? What's their posture? How do they walk? everything. You need to know who these people are. What are their cultural differences? Command of the English language. That's a big concern. How warm are they? How submissive or intrusive are they? How fast do they talk? How educated are they? How street smart are they? How much of an ego do they have? All factors to keep in mind, not to negate or say, oh, you don't have an education, you're not as good as me. You know what? Some of the richest people in the world don't have an education, and some of the smartest and most sincere don't. An education doesn't define you, just something you paid for and got. Well, at least in this country, you pay for it. Some other countries, you don't. It doesn't, you've heard it said, education doesn't give you class, doesn't give you this or that. So you can't just categorize people like that. We are all human beings. Here's the bad news, some things that you need to know. Again, sadly, this is in a negotiations context. If I were running a wedding planner company or something a lot more fun, it'd be a whole different group of things that I'd be discussing. Most people are narcissistic, concerned about themselves. Now, not all, but many, and they tend to be selfish. They're concerned with themselves. They don't want to be accountable for things. They want to walk out of this okay. Most people, not all, lack empathy. Of those who are empathetic, most lack true empathy, because some people who are empathetic want to be thanked for their contributions. Many people are entertained by others' failure. Watch television and see what's successful and ask yourself why. Those that are nice with no children, with no hidden agendas are very rare. People may really want something. Some who are nice expect something. I've said that people lie even to themselves and unintentionally. So it's not really a lie if they're lying to themselves, because they don't know they're lying, but the reality is that's where we are. People see things through their eyes. Only certain cultures allow certain behaviors that may not be allowed in your culture. So they're okay there, but not okay here. Emotions rule, the tail that wags the dog, and these are based on your rival's life before the two of you met. The voice is the window to the soul. We've discussed a little bit about the voice. Watch for easy giveaways, the way the person moves, eye contact. Look for anything that betrays them, because the subconscious will betray them. And analyze yourself. What are your implicit biases? Because you can't walk in there with implicit biases. And there's a test from on the Harvard website that will test your implicit biases. Spotting a liar. Now, this could take quite a while, so I'm not going to go through this with you, because you can simply read it. And there's a great book, Spy the Lie, from former CIA officers. Remember, we wouldn't have much of a legal system if people didn't lie. If people were honest and accountable, I'm willing to bet we could clear the judge's caseload by more than 80%. It's because people lie that I have a job as a litigator. And you want to understand in your negotiations, discussions, when they're lying. And you know what? Sometimes let them lie. Let them dig their own grave. They don't need to know that you know. The river that runs through this, okay, I got 3 minutes. What forces control the discussion? Who does the person answer to? What's expected of that person? What does that person think is expected of him or her? How does that person's disposition alter the reality of what's expected of them? Expectations. Don't be the boiling frog. I remember when COVID started, I told my team, they said, just go home for 2 weeks. And I said, no, this is a boiling frog situation where, if you put a frog in boiling water, to try to get out. But if you put it in cold water and have the heat on ever so slowly, it'll boil to death. So it was a situation where it wasn't 2 weeks that we all stayed at home, as you remember. Don't get caught in the boiling frog. Be careful. Listen to your rival. Your rival will give you the cues that you need. Listen to the words they use. So-and-so lied to me. So-and-so da-da-da-da. They're not saying necessarily believe, in liars. What they're saying is they feel betrayed. What is their body language when they're stating something important? Watch their eyes. And, do your homework on, the various directions that we look when we're asked certain questions, because they're indicative of what part of our brain is processing. Positioning. You have to have a position, and you have to be somebody. Regardless of your age, gender, anything, all these other factors. You can be the most powerful person in the room. You can be the most submissive person in the room. You can be the most this, the most that. Decide who you want to be. And you'll learn some great concepts, not on interpersonal, but just general positioning. One of the best books I ever read when I was young, it's called Positioning: The Battle for Your Mind by Reason Trout, published December 13th of 2000. Love, love, love that book. Another book, Thick Face, Black Heart, whole different thing. It's more of a war game strategy. Pay attention at what's at stake. Run some tests. Get to know what is at stake in the game so that you know how to respond. And on that note, okay, there are two groups of people we discussed: NACs, dealing with group twos, just some hints, your world versus their world, parting thoughts, drinking coffee, by the way. And then I left you with some quotes, some of my favorite business quotes, that hopefully will help you. I hope you've learned a lot. If you have a case you need to discuss, you're welcome to call me, to brainstorm something. Usually Friday afternoons are a good day for that kind of thing. 619-793-4827. I wish you all the best. I hope that you have doubled or tripled your knowledge, if not more, and already take on the world for your clients.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Stefano, for that insightful part two to your presentation. We really appreciate that. All right. So the first question that we have, Sandy, specifically, you spoke to how dressing for certain negotiations can impact things. Sandy shared, my rule of negotiations is if money is going from me to you, I dress down. If money is going from you to me, I dress up. What do you think of that?
Clever. I mean, obviously, and it's surprising because, I've been in rooms with people who are incredibly financially well equipped, and they'll dress down, and it does affect you. It's one of those things I actually have to fight. So I think that's a brilliant idea. I agree with Sandy 100%. You dress down because you want to look like you've got less money, and you want to dress up, on the flip side, saying, well, yeah, look, I'm accustomed to, if I'm going to have lunch, or I'm going to stay in a hotel in LA, I'm going to stay at the Beverly Wilshire, I'm going to have lunch at Spago's. So how much are we settling this for? Yeah, sorry, but that doesn't kind of cut what I had in mind, even for my celebration, so love it. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we had mostly other comments just thanking you, and there was two book recommendations that I want to go ahead and share with both you and the audience. So there was a recommendation for Man Watching: A Field Guide to Human Behavior by Desmond Morris, and Eye to Eye: How People Interact by Peter Marshall. And of course, Stefano did provide access to all of his slides. I know there were moments where we had to speed it up. So if you want some additional time with those, you can always download those materials by visiting the webinar page. So I want to go ahead and wrap up and just thank you all so much for being here with us today at another Justia webinar. As I mentioned at the top of our presentation, we do have our website platform, Justia Elevate, that's available to you all. It's our innovative, feature-packed website solution that's designed specifically for law firms. It's built on a WordPress-based platform, but it has tools like our Justia AI Writer, which is designed to help you create effortless content, as well as access to our AI-powered Justia chat to boost your leads, and Justia FAQs for AI to help you show up in those coveted LLM results. With all of these things, you'll have everything that you need to stand out online, and you can check out the pricing for your firm at elevate.justia.com/price. Thank you all so much for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.